All right. Welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, man. I'm happy to be here.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
So we'll start off where everyone starts off.
Yeah, for sure.
What's your earliest childhood memory?
What is my earliest childhood memory? Oh, my goodness. I remember I lived off of Bronze and University in Peoria, Illinois.
Okay.
Out in, it's like central Illinois area. And yeah, I remember actually sneaking up stairs in my parents' room.
Oh, let's
and
go.
looking in the closet and finding a skateboard. And I was so hyped because I wanted a skateboard for Christmas that year, and they caught me, and I never got it.
Oh no! Yeah. Is that how they taught you the lesson?
I never snuck up there ever again. I was very sad.
Man.
Yeah, that was one of my earliest childhood memories.
I thought you were gonna have to fake,
not super eventful or very happy or go lucky, but yeah, that is one of my earliest childhood memories.
That's hilarious.
At least the first one that comes to mind.
So we're going upstairs. We find the skateboard. We don't get the skateboard. Did you know that you weren't going to get it, or you're just like, oh, there goes the surprise?
It was pretty. They were pretty adamant that, you know what, to teach you a lesson, you're not getting this for Christmas this year. And I'm just like bawling, profusely crying. I'm like, no, because I really wanted it. All I did was play the Tony Hawk games and stuff like that. Yeah. And you're just like, it's so defeating.
Was there a specific time where they're like, hey, don't go look up here? Or
it was just one of those moments where Christmas is coming around the corner. Yeah. I had a feeling that they bought some things, and I was peeking around, being nosy, and I'm I found one of my presents. I'm like, oh my gosh! And then I hear someone coming up the stairs. I'm like, shit. So it was fun.
Got him. Lesson learned.
Yeah, that was a tough one.
So at a later time, did you get a skateboard that year?
Because I think it kind of. So I never actually skateboarded after that.
Oh no! That whole path. Your life totally changed, and I'm there.
I have plenty of friends growing up in middle school and high school that were skateboarders, kind of part of that punk scene or whatever. I never did it. I was one of those people that they made fun of because I longboarded instead. Oh, because I never skateboarded after that moment. It was
Do you ever look back at that moment and you're like, man, where could my life be if that's what it was?
I could have been a complete degenerate instead.
So when you're growing up, were you playing a bunch of sports, mostly hanging out with the skateboarders? What did that look like?
Growing up, middle school and high school, I would say... I would say just I grew up playing football.
Okay.
I grew up playing a ton of football. I was a big wrestler in middle school, high school.
Yeah.
I also played tennis.
Oh, very
nice.
For
some reason.
Cool.
I actually really, really enjoyed it. I absolutely love tennis. But it's so funny. I played football from Pee-wee, 10 years old, all the way up to my junior year of high school.
Yeah.
And then I played soccer my senior year and realized I wasted my entire life playing football.
Oh, no.
Yes. Bye.
So close. Sometimes she sits there, sometimes she doesn't.
Hey, that's okay, man. No worries. I'm here for the ride.
Now my dog's going to say, hey, love me too. So when you were picking sports, was it something that your parents wanted you to play? How did you decide what sports you were doing?
It's just growing up as an American.
Yeah.
And I lived in a small town.
Yeah.
I was over in a neighboring, town of Peoria that point in time, not super big, area. And all those guys are country boys. They like playing football.
Yeah.
That was the vibe. And I'm just trying to fit in like everybody else.
Yeah.
And then, and I was never super into football. I liked it. It was fun or whatever. But then it got to a point where growing up into high school, playing football, growing up and going to the Hell Week and two-a-days and stuff like that. And it was whatever. I was used to hard work with wrestling, but I enjoyed wrestling.
Okay.
And it got to a point where I'm like, dude, our football team fucking sucks, dude. They're terrible. So then I'm just like, I'm barely starting. I played corner on defense, which is the hardest position in football.
And no, you get no love.
You get no love as a cornerback.
No.
And oh my gosh, dude. And then like I said, we were trash.
Yeah.
So then you get to a point where okay, why am I not even playing? You're garbage.
Yeah.
We just got these Make-A-Wish coaches that are trying to they're trying to, do the best they can, but you're just like, come on, man. I don't need this BS. I really don't.
So were you guys just in a big school conference? Like, why were you guys so bad?
So we have a school in our conference. They're called Metamora Redbirds, and they've won state, half a dozen times within the last like 15, 20 years.
Yeah.
And they're absolute monsters of a program. They eat, sleep, and breathe football. So when you have some school like that in your conference, and like most of my, I hate to be like this. Most of my school was like a bunch of stuck-up white kids.
Yeah, okay.
I hate to be like that, but it's just the reality.
You're more of like a lacrosse team.
It was. It wasn't even just that. It was just like you're not tough, dude.
Yeah.
Like quit acting like I don't know. It was just there wasn't the vibe. This. I think our wrestling program, our softball program, basketball was okay, but like we didn't really have a good sports. Our band was what we were known for half the time, which is kind of funny.
It's gonna be a rough start when High School Musical is like the big thing we're going for.
Yes, it was sad for sure.
So wrestling, how did you pick that? And I feel like that, especially 10, 15 years ago, was a tough sport. Just like weight cutting and coaches just run you into the ground.
It is the hardest sport I've ever had to do.
Okay.
So I remember I wrestled at a 152 weight class my junior and senior year.
Okay.
As a kid, young man, you're growing, right?
Yeah.
To stay the same weight for 2 years straight is damn near impossible.
Yeah.
So when you're getting there, I remember my senior year, I had to cut 20 pounds to get to my weight class.
So is this coach telling you this? It's like, oh, this is your spot.
No, so in my head, I knew...
Infinite wisdom. It's always up here.
I swear, right? No, I knew. So you had 145, 152, 160.
Okay.
So then 160 is the short.
You said 155 to 160?
152 to 160.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. So like that 160 weight class, those guys are yoked out of their mind.
Okay.
Yeah. And back then I was a scrawny kid, not super strong per se. I was pretty toned, but it was the technique that carried me through a lot of my matches and stuff like that. But I knew if I tried and attempted at 160, those guys are just going to outmuscle me majority of the time.
Yeah.
So, and I had a little bit of weight on me from football season or even actually from soccer, I guess. Actually, that was senior year. So like, it was just one of those things where like, I knew if I didn't get there, I'm going to get my ass kicked. So going down to that lower weight class kind of helps that mentality. Kind of like in UFC where you see these horrifying stories of like these terrible weight cuts and stuff like that. It's because weight matters. The force behind your punch is, is measured by, the weight behind it. That's just how it is. You see Francis Ngannou, knocking people out because he's so damn big and he has so much force behind his. So it's just like weight truly does matter in those situations. And like, in jiu-jitsu, it's much different. Yeah. But in wrestling, you got to be strong. Yeah. You got to be strong. You don't have a choice. Right. So like trying to compete with those guys, I just knew in my head I wasn't going to be able to do that. So like getting down to that weight class, and I think it's the only thing that kind of like that in tennis, because it's like a one-on-one sport, right? Where I was really, really it kind of put me in the mentality of like similar to comedy where like, okay, it's just me out here. Yeah. I have to perform, put up or shut up. Yeah. This is what it's going to be. There's nobody going to help me. This isn't a team sport. This isn't a team game. Yeah. You got your coaches screaming at you in the background, stuff like that. But like in the moment, it's all eyes are on you. Yeah. And I think that's the closest I felt to being on stage. All eyes are on you. What are you going to do with this?
How did the nerves develop through the years for you when you were competing either one-on-one for tennis or wrestling?
I think and it's crazy because I grew up with like a ton of anxiety and stuff like that. And like I had like a lot of performance anxiety, which doesn't make any sense to what I'm doing now. But I think it was one of those things where like it prepared me for those. And like at the beginning, it's tough because growing up with anxiety, you feel like things are never good enough. Your performance is never good enough or whatever. And you take those losses so hard. Yeah. But then when you get your hand raised, it's the best feeling in the world.
How would you describe anxiety as maybe not an action, but like what was the feeling like for you at those individual points?
It's just this constant worry of I failed before. What what is going to be different this time that I won't fail again?
Yeah.
And then like, if you mix like depression and stuff in there, then you have like a point where like, and we don't have to get too deep, but like you can have a point where like, oh my goodness, nothing good is happening for me right now. And then I'm so worried about what's going to happen next and afraid and things are going to happen.
Yeah.
So then I expect the worst.
Yeah.
And then I also don't expect things to get any better. It's a tough cycle.
Was that earlier in your life, like middle school, high school, or like?
Oh, it was definitely like high school, probably going up into college.
Okay.
I think things turned around for me mentally.
Yeah.
Probably around like, 22, 23 years
Okay.
of age.
So in high school, was there ever a mentor or coach that's like, hey, these are emotions, and kind of like worked through like the mental aspect of things, or like how did you kind of handle that stuff?
I think it's one of those things where like I never really. So I grew up in a Mexican household.
Okay, yeah.
So you don't talk about a lot of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It's just how it is. Just like, especially with a lot of minorities too.
Yeah.
You grow up in a household where it's all hush hush about that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Go eat it off. Go sleep it off. Go whatever. Kind of. It's just brush it off. Not that big of a deal until my parents started, which they're great parents.
Yeah.
Nothing against them. Obviously, like everybody's going through their own experiences at that point in time. Like, side note, like I didn't realize like until I grew up, I'm like, dude, my parents are like, your parents are just you see them as these heroes.
Yes.
Right? You see them as these people who can do no wrong.
Captain America knows everything.
Exactly. But then there comes a point in time like, oh, you're just living this life one day at a time, just like me.
Yeah.
Like,
it's not a sponsor. I just turned it. Sorry.
Oh, you're good. You're good. But no, it's just like you're just living this life just like me.
100%.
You're learning along the way. And I think as we mature, especially as men, you kind of give a little bit more grace at that point in time. But no, I think I went through therapy. They thought, this is kind of getting serious. We should probably do something about it. So, I went to therapy for a few years. And like I felt like sometimes it helped. It helps kind of letting things, off or whatever. But then I think actually, like, believe it or not, despite me like being heavy into comedy these last few years, I actually like came close to God. And that's what kind of helped me. I think like I've always grew up in the church. Yeah. But that was kind of my family's thing. But I didn't like take it seriously until, like I said, around like 23 years of age. Yeah. Where I was just like, okay, you know what? Finding some sort of thing that's bigger than myself. Yeah. Where I can kind of, maybe come from a place of gratitude and humbleness. And like, to be honest, like that's a true nature of Christianity. If anybody's living, don't let anybody tell you that Christianity is anything other than just loving others and being grateful for your situation.
And a private jet. Like,
yes, exactly. You got
spread the word.
Yeah. Spread the word, spread the cash. We need more funding. These TV screens are not big enough.
Yes. So my parents got divorced in, I'm gonna say like 5th or 6th grade, but my grandpa was heavily involved in mental health because our aunt was schizophrenic and had bipolar. Wow. And so they're like, oh, we should put our kids in therapy. And like me and my sister in therapy, like we'd go and talk. And it was really confusing because like I would always just like initially just trust whatever professional would say. Yeah. So I think it was in high school at some point, and I was like, oh man, like I'm feeling crushed by homework and projects and all these things going on. Like I just wish I could start over. Also, this is like 15 years ago, so I don't know if my recollection is 100%, but I'm pretty sure that's all I was saying. I'm like, I just want to start over. That's kind of what I felt like it. And the therapist is like, oh, can we call your mom in and talk to her? And she's like, so he needs to go to outpatient therapy. He's thinking about killing himself. And I'm like, hold on.
That's not what I said.
Yeah. No. But then like I'm sitting there. I'm like, oh, is that what I meant? So for like months, I'm just like, I'm on all these meds. I'm listening to professionals. And then at one point, then like funny enough, I was the worst person with suicidal ideation. Like I wasn't good at it at all. Like everybody, like they were cutting, they were doing self-harm. I was in there, like the kids were like, what are you doing in here? Yeah. And I tried cutting once. It hurt so bad.
This is not for me.
I'm like, what are you guys doing?
You know what this reminds me of? Like people who like go to AA for weed.
Right. Yeah. It's like, this ain't it. Like that. I'm like, there's something wrong going here.
Correct me if I'm wrong. It sounds like it was just a confusing time in your life.
So I had ADHD, which was, I didn't take my medication all the time. And it was just like, I felt overwhelmed and like, I would think I could do something at 1 o'clock in the morning that was due in a couple of hours. I would always get it done, but I was very anxious about it. Like, it wasn't great.
I feel that, man. I feel that. That was me growing up.
There was not there was an aspect of, hey, we're going to go bring you to therapy and like they will either fix you, but it didn't feel like I had like a lot of tools to work with. And I feel like it just totally depends on who your therapist is. And like, I went through a bunch of them, but it's like, I would really wish like either in school or somebody would have been like, hey, like these are just emotions. They don't have to be like, you don't have to react to them. I'm like, oh my goodness, this is wild. Yeah. But I'm always interested in like where people are like, oh, okay, things are changing. I had a tough time kind of working on it. Yeah. So in wrestling, did you have any highs, any lows? What kind of memories did you have from there?
So we had a pretty solid program. I was majority of the time I was on JV, just because the guy that was on the same weight class as me was wrestling ever since he was a little kid. I envy the people that start comedy at 17, 18 so much. You know, God bless them, because like the ceiling is so high and the potential is so like, oh my gosh, dude. Yeah. So that was kind of the same idea, you know, growing up. A lot of these guys, that was their life, you know. Ball is life for some people. Wrestling was life for this individual. And like, you know, great guy, nothing against him. That was just the kind of the reality of the situation. But it was one of those things where like, you know, we had a great program. So like basically I was the guy to get our heavy hitters like warmed up a lot of the times.
Oh no.
Yes. Like I was it was one of those things where like it wasn't even like I was just this hardcore wrestler, you know, constantly kicking ass or whatever. No, like our program was so damn good that like I had a pretty successful season. I think I went 11-0 my senior year, but like that was on the JV squad. I think I won a tournament that year and stuff like that. But like a lot of these guys are going to sectionals and state and stuff like that. And they're like really, really up there. Like the skill level was pretty intense. Yeah. And then the practices, oh my goodness. Our coach would turn up the heat in our practice room, lock the doors. Yeah. So then we would sweat everything out. And we would layer up 2-3 layers sometimes. Yeah. I'd wear like a crew neck or a sweatshirt with a hoodie, throw the hoodie up. Some people are wearing beanies. They'll tape their wrists, their ankles to trap all their body heat. They'll wear garbage bags to make themselves sweat. Like this was a hardcore environment. But like I said before, you put all of this work in. It is one of the most excruciating. It's borderline child abuse. Yeah. But it is one of the most excruciating things by far that I've done. Yeah. But then also one of the most rewarding. When you, like I said, when you know, this sounds kind of messed up, but when I toss someone and all I hear is in their stomach and I slam them to the freaking ground, it is one of the best feelings in the world. Yeah. So then like when you get your hand raised, it's amazing. And that's kind of like what I feel like comedy is for me, is when I kill a set and I know I'm on. Obviously you have off nights and stuff like that. It happens. Ebbs and flows, of course. But like when you're on, it's the best feeling in the world. I was the awkward kid in middle school and high school. I had good friends growing up. I didn't have a ton of them, though. So then like going from not a ton of attention to then all the attention, the lights, the eyes are on me. Yeah. I got people clapping for me, you know, laughing at what I have to say. Dude, that's amazing. Yeah. It's absolutely amazing.
Yeah. What made you assume that you were the awkward kid or didn't have a lot of friends? Like what?
It was very apparent.
They told me.
No, it was definitely, I was a goofy kid. Yeah. I fully admit I was a goofy kid. I'm just socially awkward, you know, not really great around girls or whatever. Not that I have to be anymore. I'm married now, thank God. But like, I cannot imagine trying to date in 2025. Yeah. That sounds terrifying. But no, it's just, you know, just being not super talkative,
Yeah.
Didn't really get out there, didn't really speak up, speak my mind kind of thing. So then years and years of that, you don't kind of work on those chops, you know, you don't kind of work on that kind of you don't stretch that muscle.
Right.
So that's kind of what it was.
What was there? Did you have a lot of family around you? And if so, like what kind of directions did they try to push you in high school?
Directions where just like
either like, hey, I think you should be doing this. You need to be working less of this. Like what was kind of their trajectory they wanted you on?
Okay, I think so. Like as far as like, I was one of the first. I went to college, just like a local community college, right out of high school, essentially. And it was fine or whatever. I felt like I wasn't really cut out for it. I've done so many things up until this point in time. It was insane. I went to college for like a year and a half, dropped out of community college, like like a plebeian. And then
I'm with you.
So then my dad, he was a union guy, welder, he's a Boilermaker, right?
Oh, let's go.
Yeah, traveling all around the Midwest. Did that. He actually,
how's his eyes?
Not so. You just gotta be careful.
Yeah.
He wears like UV protected like
mask,
clear glasses, and then he'll wear his hood on top of that too to kind of protect his eyes. And as long as you're wearing the proper shades and stuff like that, it's not too bad. Obviously, years and years of doing it, it's gonna take its toll over time. But like he wasn't worried about that. He was worried about providing for his family.
No, for sure.
He's I admire him completely. But no, he actually one of my football coaches growing up in like grade school damn near saved our family actually one time. So he was a big shot at this union hall at the town I was living in at the time. And my dad used to work at like a dog food plant or something. And the factory burnt down.
Oh shit.
And my dad had to work at Kroger for like a year because he didn't have another job.
Right.
And like my parents just like bought a house not too long prior. Yeah. And like, dude, my family was like damn near screwed. And like, it was a super stressful time in like my parents' lives. I'm super young, don't really get it, of course. But like going into football, one of my coaches, big shot union guy, he basically grandfathered my dad into the union. Let's go. And like got him going in the union, became a welder, and he saved my family financially. It was crazy, dude. Yeah. But no, his eyes are okay. Not too bad.
That's good. I was a laborer for 5 years, and it's just like whenever you see the welder, it's like, you, sir, are making a lot of money.
Yeah. Yeah.
Take care of yourself.
It's scary, man. So after college, I went to welding school because I wanted to be like Dad, right? I wanted to be like Pops. Yeah. And I got the freaking burns on my arms to prove it. But I went to welding school, got all my certifications and stuff like that. And it wasn't the most prestigious school, but we got shit done. So I did a few shops around the area, a few weld shops and stuff like that. My very first weld job, oh my goodness, it was atrocious. So is $16 an hour. Okay. I'm slagging parts off of these because they couldn't afford lasers, so they cut them with torches, right? So then you have all this residue and stuff like that on these little parts that they make for these companies and stuff, and I'm breathing in rust all day, grinding shit, and it was terrible, right? Yeah. And like you try to wear a mask in those situations, but you can't breathe because there's no air circulation. Right. So you're like, you can't breathe all day for 8-10 hours a day. Or you take your mask off, you're able to breathe, but you're breathing all this junk and stuff.
So this was a union job, and they're like, hey, we need you to fill this spot. And you're like, I can't say no? Or how does that work?
Well, technically, it wasn't even union.
Oh, okay.
So I got my welding certifications, and I was contemplating joining in the union, but I kind of wanted to like get in the industry, stay in the area, because I knew my dad was a big traveler. Right. And I didn't want to travel quite yet. Yeah. I just wasn't at that point in my life. So I'm going into a few of these weld shops, and my very first job I get right out of school, they tell me, you know what, you'll have to work occasional weekends, no big deal. You'll work 8 hours a day from 7 to 3. Okay, no big deal.
Yeah. Can I get that in writing, please?
Exactly. So my dumbass, I go into the job. For the first 2 weeks, everything's all kosher. Yeah. Oh, I need you to come in at 5 tomorrow. Okay, whatever, 5. And never switch back to 7. I was there for almost a year. Never switch back to 7. Oh, I need you to come in at 3 in the morning on Saturday. Yeah. And so then I'm getting up at 4 in the morning, going in, working from 5 to 3 or whatever. I'm exhausted by that time because I don't sleep with a shit. I'm a young kid growing up.
Right.
Just
still want to do stuff.
Exactly. Mad ADD vibes. Do you sleep? Because I don't.
So if I don't exhaust myself physically, then I won't sleep.
Yep. Because my brain is just running at a million miles an hour. I'm constantly overthinking, worrying about things and stuff like that. So it's just I never slept to begin with. Yeah. And then like waking up at 4 a.m, and then it was just got to be this like perpetual cycle of, okay, wake up, you work your shitty 10-hour shift. You come home, hop on the game for a few hours, eat some dinner, go to bed at 8:30 so you can actually get up at a decent time and do it all over again. Yeah. And it got so repetitive where like I had no fulfillment in my life. I'm like, screw this, man. I had a few other weld jobs because I knew the money could have been better. And I'm like, and I tried it out. I'm like, you know what? Welding isn't for me.
So what was your breaking point? Because you were there for a year.
Yeah.
So was it like a couple weeks in, you said, this ain't for me, I'm going to hold it out? Or like, how did you get to each spot so that you finally leaving?
It was one of those things where like, you get out of school, you think you're going to be this badass welder, working on jobs and making good money and stuff like that. That wasn't the case. Obviously, you gotta kind of earn your stripes a little bit. So I go in thinking originally it was titled as a repair welding job. So I'm scuffing parts, spot welding some of these stuff, grinding them off and sending them on their way, right? Yeah. And then it got to a point where I was not even doing a ton of welding. I was just scuffing parts, like a lot of the other guys. But I was like a glorified, what they call slagger. Yeah. So it was just like, it got to a point where I'm not even welding using the skills that I learned in school. Yeah. So then I ended up quitting that job, get a few other weld jobs. I think I got fired from one.
Well, what happened?
Oh, I'm too nice. And I found a really, what I thought was a good guy, coworker. He's smoking too much weed and he needed someone to piss for him. Yeah. So I got caught.
Let's go.
I know.
How'd they catch you?
I think someone snitched, to be honest. I went to the bathroom.
Oh, no.
I pissed for the guy, and I think someone told on me, and I got fired the next day. Yeah. And then it got to a point where like, you know what? I can't keep doing this anymore. Like, this is so like, it was so bad. I've worked in restaurants as servers. Yeah. I worked at a Toyota dealership.
Oh, let's go. I sold cars for 6 months. Nice. What were you doing?
I was a porter.
Hey, let's go.
So I worked in, the lube side of things and also as a porter. And I also I got experience. My main experience that I have, like, that's more applicable to what I'm doing right now is I ended up working at a body shop called Gerber Collision for probably
I've heard their commercials.
Yeah. For probably about 2-3 years. Yeah. And, I ended up getting experience. It was right before COVID, getting really good experience actually. At first running their parts department, being a detailer, stuff like that. But then, I kind of wanted to make a career out of it. And I was like, you know what? I don't want, this seems like it's going nowhere. Let's get the ball rolling here. And they're like, you know what? We'll sign you up for an apprenticeship, and you could work under one of our guys. Yeah. And, you could start learning stuff. And I was tearing down cars and stuff like that, prepping them and, taking off moldings and getting them ready for paint and scuff and body work and stuff like that. And that was where I got a lot of my experience. And it got to a point where COVID hit. They had to let me go. Yeah. So because they couldn't afford to pay an apprentice, so they could barely afford to keep their guys. So I understood. But
people weren't driving anymore.
Exactly. So it was tough, dude. Oh my goodness. And then I'm laid off, messing around with that, like everybody else at that point in time.
Just to go back just a hair. Yeah. Any of those previous jobs, was there any fantastic stories, either good or bad, that you can remember from any of those jobs? I always like to see if there's anything interesting in there.
I try to block out that part of my life.
just pissing hot for somebody else.
Yes, it was. It wasn't a fun time. That was when
it wasn't a fun time.
I was having a lot of my.
I was sad.
Wow, good evaluation. No, that was the point of my life before I was pretty depressed at that point.
What does depression look like for you at that point? Oh my just gosh, mental, physical. How did it show up for you?
It was just it's encapsulating. Where I don't know. if you've experienced it or not, but it was one of those actually I guess you did kind of it was one of those things where it just engulfs your mind.
Yeah.
Where there's no hope. Mm-hmm. There's absolutely nothing. Nothing can go right for me. I'm worthless. And then like that loop of anxiety rolls in where nothing will go good for me in the future. And my life is shit right now. And I hate to be like this, but like I went through it for so long. And that's why I said like I started taking like church and things more seriously, because like I felt like I couldn't do it. I was trying to do things on my own for so long, and it wasn't working.
Yeah.
And I hate to be like this, but sometimes depression can come from a point of narcissism. And I can only say this because I've been through this.
Yeah.
And it was such a dark point in my life where, you know, I contemplated ending my life.
Yeah.
A ton. I would remember going at Gerber Collision. I remember I would have to get off at this exit all the time, the same exit. And there was like a steel like beam that blocks the roadway and divides like the off ramp to the highway. And I'm like, what if I just pulled left a little bit?
Yeah.
I remember constantly thinking to myself, like, I got nobody in the car with me. It's just going to be me that, you know, that has to endure this. We'll take care of things right now. And every time I passed by that exit, I thought of it all the time.
What do you feel like stopped you?
Man, I had my girlfriend, now wife at the time.
Shout out. She's over there somewhere.
I know.
She's shopping.
No. She is love of my life.
Yeah.
I think part of me was like, too much of a puss. But then part of me is also like, gosh, dude, I just didn't want to do it to my family.
Yeah.
I think that was the only thing keeping me going was I didn't want to do it to my family. I didn't want to put, because when you take your life, that pain is just passed on to somebody else.
Yeah.
And it's just so freaking hard, man. Cause like I wanted to so bad, but like I couldn't.
Yeah.
But I think that's what really, really kept me going. And I started like when things at the body shop got okay or whatever, but like COVID hit, you know, I'm still kind of like not going through great mental state, but I'm like in and out of church, kind of finding like my own like lane here. But then like you're stuck in your house all damn day. It doesn't help for anybody. Obviously, depression's on the rise for everybody there. I don't want to feel like or say that I was the only one suffering there. But like,
not a random occurrence.
Exactly. But no, I think my family kind of kept me going on that.
I think it's very interesting because it looks different for everybody, but usually it is a internalization, and that's just the thought, and it just runs with it. And then at some point, the thought just fucking changes, and it's like, why did this take so long?
Yeah.
like it's literally, we're at 1:32 in the morning, and now it's 1:32 in 1 second, and it's not all gone, but it's changed. There's a glimmer of hope. There's
and it doesn't go away. Right. You just learn how to manage.
Right. So for me, I still remember it. I was at the gym at River West. I was with my uncle because I wasn't allowed to be alone.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was still in high school. Like I would have to take baths like with the door open. I couldn't do anything alone.
Oh.
Not the funny thing. The funny thing was I was thinking about killing myself all the time, but like not going through with it. So they'd be like, "Oh, like what are you thinking about right now?" And they'd be like, "Oh, like I see that telephone cord I could wrap around my neck." Like that's not. I wasn't going to do it.
Impulse,
but I was
thoughts,
right, and I was told like I was thinking about it. That's what my thing was. It was suicidal ideation. Yeah, I thought about it, but I didn't know until that one moment in the gym. I was walking from the rower to get water. I'm like, oh, it's just a thought. Like I can let that go. Yeah. And it's like, well, okay, now we're moving forward.
That's a changing moment in your life. Yeah, that's
like
awesome.
I still remember it. I was like at that moment.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, damn, okay, now we're moving on.
What kind of turned the tide for me? And that's awesome. I'm glad you're here, by the way. What kind of was the turning moment in my life was just finding gratitude in things. When you're suicidal, when you're when you're in that pit of darkness, you have no hope for anything. There's no gratitude. What are you grateful for?
Right.
So then finding gratitude in things where like things could be worse. I got a good family, I got a roof over my head, I got, a running car, and I never thought of things like that for the longest time. And then it was just kind of slowly but surely having more and more gratitude that really kind of changed me. And to touch back on that, like narcissism I was talking about, when you're constantly thinking about yourself, it's poor me, why me, there's nothing. You're not thinking of others. You're not thinking of freaking people getting bombed over in Gaza.
Right.
You're not people thinking of, all of these terrible things that happen in the world that could be happening to you, but you were born in the perfect exact spot in the most perfect time and location where things actually aren't too bad. So I am empathetic towards those people, but it's one of those things where like, you just got to find gratitude in things. That's what really turned the tide for me. As someone with ADD, do you get a lot of intrusive thoughts?
Oh yeah. Well, and that's just what they were. And now I am able to allow them to be a thought, and then they just float on by.
Yeah.
And beforehand, like, I thought my
You
mind
thought it
is
defined you.
Yeah. I'm like, oh, I can't believe I'm thinking this. Good thing people like. As soon as this mind reading stuff comes out, we're gonna have some issues.
I swear, man.
Like
we're all gonna be canceled.
Anytime in the movie where like something wild happens and then you kind of like snap out of it, I was like, yeah,
that could be me.
Moving on. Yeah. So, and when that goes on for you, how did you first learn how to deal with that?
I think it's just one of those things where, like you said, thoughts. You don't have to be defined by your thoughts, right? You can think those thoughts, but you don't have to act on those thoughts. That's what defines, a good person. You can think the worst things in the world, but if you're not acting upon those things, you have some sort of conscience. You have, a decent heart or whatever. And that's kind of the same idea where I was just like, okay, let's just accept this for what it is. I know this is probably going to affect me for the rest of my life, and it still does to this day. Yeah. But how can I have low times all the time, but like it's how do I react to that? How do I just sit alone by myself on my phone and doom scroll all day? Or do I call up a buddy, go to the gym? Yeah. Do I, hit an open mic? Do I, talk to my wife, kind of communicate? And we've, like I said, she's my saving grace. We've had some tough conversations about some of the things I've gone through, and she checks up on me periodically and things like that because she just kind of knows. We spend enough time together, obviously, where
she can smell it.
Exactly. So it's one of those things where like just slowly but surely kind of noticing those signs and being more aware of your behaviors and like just like, wow, I'm not feeling okay right now. Yeah. Maybe I should go out and do something, get some sunlight, just call my dad or something, right? Communicate. The worst thing you could do is nothing. Yeah. That is the absolute worst thing you can do. Yeah. So looking at those signs, being more conscious about my behaviors, and just kind of being self-aware of what's going on. And that's what makes the best comedians. Yeah. Comedians that are self-aware, right?
So when did you first start to get into comedy? Did you see a comedy show when you were really young? What was kind of your path?
I think, okay, so I'll tell you this. So I've always wanted to do comedy, right? I absolutely loved listening to the Chris Rock albums from back in the day, Bigger and Blacker, all those, iconic albums and stuff like that. Grew up on him. Gabriel Iglesias was big in my household. Russell Peters, absolute monsters of comedians, right? And obviously they're, the mecca of comedy. Yeah. But like, it was one of those things where I didn't like have the balls to do it till about, little under 2 years ago. Yeah. When I first started, attempted comedy, I went to a few open mics at my local club. Yeah. Did like 2. And then my buddy was already a few years into comedy at that point in time. My buddy Ruben, which I'll tell you about later. He offered me a 5-minute guest spot on a New Year's show. After only 2 open mics, I had no clue what I was doing. Go. It was awesome. It was exciting, but I bombed for 15 people in this small town in bumfuck Egypt, in the middle of nowhere.
Egypt? We're going cross-continental already?
No.
This is wild. I got 5 minutes for you next to the Sierra Desert.
Yes.
Come on over, bud.
Yes. No, out in BFE, in the middle of nowhere. Yeah. Wendota, Illinois.
I just drove past there to go to Whirlham Curling.
Nice.
Shout out. That's such a fun time.
That's hilarious. It was at this small little black-owned club.
I'm surprised they had 15 people. I'll be honest.
I know, right? Obviously, he's much better at marketing now. Yeah. God bless him. That was just, not the best show. It happens, right? You can't control everything.
So you have 2 open mics. Your buddy says, "Hey, I need you to get 5 minutes."
Yes.
How do you first start creating that 5 minutes?
So I don't even think I made my time personally. Like at that point in time, I did the show. I don't even think I did my time. I got off. It was the most awkward and atrocious thing I've ever done.
Yeah.
Obviously, the first time ever performing on a show, and it was just like, it was terrifying, right? Totally bomb. It was awful. Mm-hmm. None of the jokes landed. Complete and dead silence. So then, and I drove an hour and a half to be there just to bomb.
That drive home's got to be wild.
It's rough. So I didn't do comedy for another year and a half after.
Oh, no.
It was so demoralizing. So then about 2 years ago, I picked it back up again, and I never stopped.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you decide to pick it back up, how do you get to that point where you're like, all right, I'm going to give this a shot again?
Well, it was just one of those things where like I was more mad at myself.
Yeah.
I was just like, in the moment, I'm mad at my buddy, and I knew he was just trying to give me an opportunity. I'm very grateful. But it was just like, in the moment, I was just so pissed.
Yeah.
I was so upset, and I'm like, I don't know if I'm cut out for this kind of thing. And I was already socially awkward and nervous as it is. So then, like, maybe this isn't for me. Maybe I was just good enough for being a consumer of comedy. And it was just one of those things where, like, you know what? I think I want to do this again. Yeah. And I just, every now and then, like, it didn't happen right away. But maybe, a year after that big bombing or whatever, I start jotting down little things or whatever, little things that I thought were funny. Yeah. And it wasn't the most amazing stuff in the world. Obviously, my comedy's completely changed from when I first picked it back up to now. Yeah. But at the same time, like just jotting little things down, whatever. The months go by, I'm like, okay, this is funny, whatever. Yeah. Take a note of this story. Yeah. And then I have, start going back to the open mics, start making friends with some of the local comedians at the time. And I live in Peoria. It's not a huge city, with the surrounding areas combined, maybe no more than 300,000 people. Okay. So, and there's like a lot of towns in between. So it's one of those things where like, it was a slowly but surely kind of thing where like, okay, I'm going to suck for the first few months. Yeah. It's going to be pretty terrible. But my buddy Ruben, who gave me that first opportunity on that New Year's show, I basically told him, because he was like part of my inspiration into doing comedy among a bunch of other things as well. But he basically was like, okay, I see you doing this. We're gonna see how things go. And about maybe 3-4 months into that time, he's like, he put a little word bird in my ear, and he was like, why don't you throw a show or something? Why didn't you try to like get things going or whatever? Yeah. And I finally, built enough time where like, I had a decent, nothing crazy, but a somewhat decent, 5 to 8 minutes of material that I thought was, worthy of a show. And I didn't even charge for that show. It was a bar. One of my best friends, his name's Dakota Rogi. Shout out to him in Tavern on Prospect, because that's where I do my monthly open mic now. Okay. I have the honor of hosting that too in Peoria. Shameless plug.
Hey, absolutely.
But no, it was kind of a trial run, right? Where he wanted to kind of see how comedy, he saw that I was doing comedy and wanted to be supportive. He's like, how about you throw a show here, and I didn't charge people because I didn't feel worthy of that, right? I didn't want to do that for my first ever show. And, I made flyers, passed everything around. This is 3-4 months into comedy. Yeah. Passing a bunch of stuff around. And, I got some comics that would be willing to do the show for free because I couldn't pay anybody. Right. I wasn't reputable. I didn't have a decent name or whatever. 75 people show up.
Let's fucking go.
It was insane, dude. Like, people had to stand in the street out in this patio. We did an outdoor show. Yeah. We had some cute little Edison lights hanging out, great ambiance. We got the sound and everything going, and like, it was just like a dream. Yeah. It was amazing, dude. I had like people from my high school show up and stuff like that. And like, it was one of those things where like, wow, it was just the boost I needed to keep going.
Yeah.
Right. Where like some of the shows were like, you have a bad show, your timing's off, something just wasn't right, things weren't hitting, right? Whatever it may be. It's so demoralizing. The lows are so low in comedy.
Be wild.
When you have a sea of people staring at you, I got another story for you too.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Hit it. Let's go.
When you have a sea of people,
you can drink some of that water if you want. That is for you.
Okay, I figured so. But thank you.
Yeah.
When you have a sea of people of dead silence.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, dude. It's terrible, man. It's so terrible. But the lows are so low, but the highs are so high, dude. Like when you, like I said before, when you kill, dude, it's almost like a drug in itself. Where like it keeps you wants to keep you going for the next show and the next show and the next show. And then you just see the timing slowly get better. You see the punches slowly get better. You see the writing slowly get better to the point where like, okay, maybe I'm cut out for this. Maybe I have the potential to be something in this industry. And like comedy, as you know, you see it all the time on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, whatever. It's the biggest it's ever been because of social media, right? So then the competition is so high. Yeah. Everybody's trying to get a spot on a show. Yeah. Everybody's trying to get better. Everybody wants, the biggest commodity in comedy is stage time. Okay. Almost more than payment itself. Yeah. Because obviously you're not going to get better without it. Yeah. Excuse me. But no, it was just like a slow but sure progression. Yeah. And my boy Ruben, shout out to him. He saw me host that show at Tavern over in Peoria, Peoria Heights to be exact. Mm-hmm. He's like, okay, you hosted a show. Decent turnout, good for you.
How'd the show go?
Oh, it was amazing. Dude.
Yeah?
Went off without a hitch. The set went well. Yeah. My parents showed up, which was a little awkward, but you know, whatever, given the conversations and the topics that were discussed. But, you know, it was amazing. Absolutely amazing. All my homies showed up, you know, people from high school, randoms, and the bar regulars showed up. And it was absolutely amazing.
So when you're, it's 5 to 8 minutes, or like how long was your...
My set at that time... probably about 5 to 7 minutes at most. I was new, 3 months in. Comedy is a trial and error process, right? Where like you're basically throwing shit at the wall and seeing what sticks. Yeah. So you go to the open mics, you jot down some ideas or whatnot. Go to the open mics, and let's see if we can build this into an actual bit. Yeah. So is this a decent premise? Do I have something here? And then it's just a process of fine tuning at that point.
So when you, because there's a bunch of different types of comedy, and so non sequitur, that's like your one-off lines, right?
Yeah, it's kind of like one-liners, Mitch Hedberg style comedy. Yeah.
So then, and a lot of people, it'll be like a story, but they're somehow getting a joke and a joke and a joke. Yeah. When you first get your like, hey, this is a good, like kind of a funny story. The whole thing's not super funny, but how do you turn the whole thing? How do you turn it into a bit? Because like I've watched a lot of comedy, and people they like kind of talk about it, but I guess everybody's comedy is really that different. What's your specific way to make a joke?
So I think like I am more of a. I love comics like Sam Morril and Mark Normand. Absolutely, hilarious comics where they're more bit style comedy, where it's just bang, 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 bang. But I think I am more story driven, where like, especially with a story, what I've learned at least, I'm only not even 2 years in quite yet, so take it with a grain of salt. It's you find like the concept, if you genuinely think that the concept or story or experience that you just went through is genuinely funny, something you can make fun of, you could potentially throw that into a bit, whether it's embarrassing to yourself. That's the best kind of comedy, shitting on yourself. It's awesome. Where like the self-deprecating humor, where no hate or no judgment is casted out on another person. It's just on you, right? It's so easy to do, like make fun of yourself. It's fun. But like you work with, okay, first, is the story funny? Second, how can I implement what's called tags into my story,
Yeah.
my bits, where like they're tiny little punches in between the storyline, right? Where like you might maybe to set up the story, you kind of set it up and you have this big punch. Okay, the crowd is kind of believing in what you got to say. You have a little bit more grace. It's all about shortening the distance between one laugh and the next, right? Because it's a momentum, it's a flow, it's a vibe, right? If comedy is very vibe oriented, where like when you go into a comedy show, I don't know if you've ever been to one, where like the host comes up, right? And he's the one that gets things going. Yeah. And it's ground zero, right? You're starting from the bottom. And that host his job is very important because he's starting the momentum
Everyone's
of every
talking,
other
ordering,
comedian. Exactly. So then you have to like, okay, that's kind of the same thing with a story where like I have to put a punch here, like maybe closer to the beginning, so then I can win the crowd over to explain the rest of the story. Another little quick tags in between there to get some quick laughs, and then maybe end it with a big punch kind of thing.
Gotcha.
So then you have to win the crowd over. They're not going to just laugh right away, right? So it's one of those things where nobody's going to fake laugh for you.
Yeah.
You have to... It has to be something that you genuinely are passionate about, genuinely you think is funny. And one of the best advice I ever got from one of the local comics, his name's Heath Thornton. I've had him headline a few showcases that I've done. Very, very grateful for that guy. He told me you have to relive that moment. When you have like a funny story or something on stage or something that inspired that joke, right? Yeah. Whether it's just a kind of small bit or a story or whatever. Yeah. Whatever inspired that joke, you have to relive that moment because that is the most authentic it will ever be. Yeah. And then that's what's going to be most believable for that crowd, right? So because if as an audience member, if you don't believe what that guy is saying up there, why would you feel inclined to laugh? Yeah. There's such a science to this that I never even imagined. Right. Where it's just group psychology, it's group mentality, herd mentality, right? Where can I get all of these people on the same page? And then can I keep the ball rolling until I'm done? Yeah. It's one of the hardest things I've ever done, but it's amazing. Yeah. I wouldn't trade it for the world.
Are you constantly forcing yourself to write like 10, 15 minutes a day, half an hour? Like how do you specifically
I'm going to be honest. I slack on those kinds of things. Yeah. I think I don't have someone who's grown up with depression and stuff like that, a lot of anxiety. I don't have a lot of confidence in myself. Yeah. So it's one of those things where like I'm constantly working on what I think is funny. Yeah. And like I have like premises and stuff that I don't think are necessarily set worthy quite yet. Yeah. But you know what? If I think I'm just constantly thinking of jokes, getting in a mentality of just constantly thinking of it. Yeah. So I might not be like writing all the time, but like constantly thinking of little tags and stuff like that, things I can add to my jokes that I already have in my set. So it's kind of that sort of thing where I can just get in that mode. And I think just constantly thinking about it, you're going to eventually come up with something worth keeping. Okay. And I probably have about 10 to 12 minutes of material that I think is set worthy. Okay. So probably that's set worthy. Yeah. But then maybe 20 minutes of actual material that I haven't worked out yet, that I haven't fine tuned. Gotcha. That some of that other 8 to 10 minutes of material that I might have, it's stuff that needs to be fine tuned. It needs to be practiced. Yeah. Because the one thing that kind of sucks about this process is you have to see the same comics a lot if you're working out at a club and stuff like that. Because then some of the best advice I've gotten is you're not doing comedy for those comics, you're doing comedy for the audience, right? Okay. So, but then it's hard to see that when those same guys are there every single day. You want to do good. You want to impress your peers, right? And there's a point in time where and that goes with anything, any sort of profession or whatever. So there's a part of me that was like, okay, do I just do my best on my regular stuff? Yeah. Or do I try to work on new things? They might flop, but that's the only way to get better is to be working on new stuff. At least the way I try to work on new things at least is, okay, I start off with a joke that I know that's tried and true, that I know I can get laughs with if it's done correctly, right? Timing, everything else involved. And then I sprinkle maybe a few new jokes in the middle, and then end with a solid closer that I deem that's something that's worth doing. That's how. So then you at least set yourself up for success.
Okay.
You work on your new material in the middle,
Yeah.
and then you can end with a big hurrah, right? And obviously, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But like I said, it's all trial and error, man.
Yeah. There was. So I'm always telling my wife jokes, and she's like, "This is terrible. Like you have no business. With, like this is not funny."
Yep.
And then I had a gentleman on. I gave him the premise. It was something along the lines of, can you imagine being a bird living next to a zoo, and then you go tell your friends, like, there's a rhino and, like, a polar bear. So it's just, like, that was more or less the premise.
That premise is kind of funny, because then,
thank you. That's two.
Okay, so there's probably something there, because in the mind of the bird, I'm going to humor you for a second. In the mind of the bird, if he's just a bird that doesn't live in the zoo, but he sees all these other birds, and they're locked up in cages. What are they doing to these damn birds? Kind of mysterious. I better go tell all my friends and break all these other birds out.
Okay, I like that.
That kind of like mentality. We're like, what are they doing to these birds? This is the Diddy's Island for birds or something.
Well, and as we were talking about high school and stuff, I always had really fun medical issues where I was just bleeding out of my asshole.
Fun medical issues.
Yeah.
That's
I was bleeding out of my asshole, and
my.
I was like, this isn't normal. But I'm like, I'm also like a very emotional person. Like, am I transitioning? Like, I don't like I don't know how to
no
talk.
idea.
I had no idea.
Well, that's obviously terrifying, and I appreciate you being willing to share something like that.
But I'm like, there's something here, and then I feel like I tell the story in like a line. So how do you break it up? Do you keep going? And like, it just seems like, how can everybody have such good stories all the time?
Well, everybody has embarrassing stories, right?
Yeah.
And everybody especially an audience member, everybody can relate to an embarrassing stories, because if you had embarrassing things happen to yourself, I'll tell you one that I need to start doing again as a bit that I've been trying to work on. I pissed my pants 5 minutes before a show.
Let's go.
Oh man, I like that little space.
First off, that's wild.
Insane. I'm supposed to host. Insane, dude. And it wasn't even out of nerves.
Wild.
It wasn't even out of nerves. So, dude, it was so.
Are you bringing spare pants everywhere you go now?
I probably should. No. So I'm on the shitter, because you can piss without shitting, but you can't shit without pissing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I'm on the shitter, and you think like. When you think it's gonna go like down.
Now I know where this is going.
It goes,
I thought you were just like walking around.
No.
Okay.
I get the nervous.
This is more reasonable.
I get the nervous poops. So I go to the bathroom 5 minutes before a show.
Yeah.
And the shit's pointing up and
Absolutely.
not down.
Let's go.
And it go. The little space in between, the seat and
that, for sure.
Straight through.
Amazing.
So it hit the back of my pants because I'm sitting down, not the front. So it looked like I got fucked from behind. And I get up. The guy I did a show for that did this it was just on New Year's.
Yeah.
Just a few months ago.
Amazing.
He was blind. His name's Matt Stein. Great comic, been doing it for about 15 years.
Yeah. The
so
blind bit or the
no, the blind. He's actually blind. He's been doing comedy for 15 years.
Yeah.
He was the running the show and stuff like that at this like local VFW, and very very appreciative for the opportunity.
Yeah.
But like, thank God he didn't have to see me, because it was so insane. So I tell him, I run up to him frantic, obviously, and I'm like, I'm so sorry. I have to go. I have an emergency. I didn't tell him what was happening, because I was around other people, obviously.
Yeah.
So then I was wearing black pants at the time.
Yep.
So it was okay. I could kind of sneak out of here, without hopefully nobody noticing, really.
Mm-hmm.
I get out and I call him after the show's done, because I felt terrible.
You didn't do the show.
No. I was supposed to host
You
that
couldn't
show.
Just shuffle.
So the problem is, I have piss-soaked pants, and I have to wear those for like the next hour and a half, possibly 2 hours, and I'm hosting the show. So I have to be there the whole time. I'm not opening, right?
Oh, no.
So I can't just do my little set and bounce.
Yeah.
And it was bad. I had to, wash my hands. I felt so gross. It was so bad, dude. I called him.
This is great.
I called him after the show. I'm like, you want to know what happened, bro? And he's like, well, what happened? Is everything okay? What was going on? He was genuinely concerned for me.
I got a new bit.
I fucking pissed myself, dude. And we just laughed for the next couple minutes on the phone together. And he's like, well, at least you have 3 new minutes. So yeah, and ironically, he was right.
Yeah.
This goes to show how much of a veteran he is. I timed it.
Yeah.
When I tried out that story, it was like 2 minutes, 45 seconds almost.
That's incredible. I listened to Kill Tony. Like I used to only watch the clips. Then Jessica's brothers like why don't you watch the show? Like it's it's fantastic.
Yeah.
And I think I maybe started listening to it 7 to 8 months ago.
It's just a giant open mic.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
Why do you think that more people don't do more just like Kill Tony-esque shows, or are there a bunch of people that do them around here?
To be honest, there are a lot of like Kill Tony ripoffs and stuff like that. You'd be surprised.
Okay.
There's a tons of different concepts. Like there's roast battles.
Yeah.
There's just your regular stereotypical open mic.
Yeah.
But then sometimes there's like judges with a panel, Kill Tony style mic, and people do that. There's like stuff around Central Illinois that do that.
Okay.
And it's fun. It's cool. You sign up. You the concept obviously is pretty similar to that. You do your 1 or 2 minutes or whatever, and then they kind of chat with you, whatever, make fun of you essentially.
Yeah.
And if you have any sort of balls, you can make fun of them too, kind of clap back a little bit, and maybe they give you a show opportunity. And it's fun doing that. It's a good time.
Do those perform well, like as far as getting noticed or anything like that?
The problem is it's essentially, like I said, a giant open mic.
Yeah.
So anybody can sign up, right? Anybody off the street. They don't have to be a comedian.
Right.
They might think they're the hottest shit since sliced bread.
Yeah.
And they're going to come in and they've never done comedy before.
Right.
But I'm funny at work. I can do this and totally bomb their ass off. So there's some of that, whereas the audience member is pretty cringy to watch.
Right.
It's funny as a comedian. I don't like to be a hater,
Yeah.
but it is fun to watch someone bomb.
Yeah.
Because especially as a comic, you've bombed before.
Right.
And you know how rough it is.
Yeah.
So it's all you can do is make fun. But it's the concept is really, really good, but obviously the pool of comedians also have to be really, really good to make it a good show.
Yeah.
And to be honest, especially if you're charging people, you should probably try to get a good plethora of comedians so then these customers can be, get their money's worth out of what's going on.
Well, I think it's interesting because an episode that came out maybe it was like a month or so ago, they had 22 people come up because it was just atrocious. They couldn't get anybody good in.
Yep.
But I thought for the most part, you set them up good with Cam or the other 3 comics they have in there, they kill it.
Exactly. Get the ball rolling, get that momentum started.
Yeah.
And sorry to cut you off.
No, you're good.
But then hopefully, like you said, set them up for success. So then the crowd's warmed up. They're ready for someone to hopefully kill it.
Yeah.
And the problem is with Kill Tony, and I think it's a great launching pad for a lot of people that are on the up and up.
Yeah.
But there's some people you see people bomb and it's a rough watch. Yeah. So then they're eternally labeled as that because it's on the internet forever, right?
Okay.
So it's, I guess, for that specific situation, I guess me personally, if I wanted to sign up, I don't know if I'd sign up anytime soon.
Really?
Because I want to make sure I'm ready for that moment.
Gotcha.
You see them at the Madison Square Garden and all these crazy arenas and stuff like that. It's gotten to a point where it's so big.
Yeah.
Where, to be honest, the grassroots of it was very, very small.
Yes.
Good for them or whatever.
I went back to watch some of those earlier episodes.
They're smaller venues.
Tony's exactly the same, but the guests are wild.
Yeah.
The comics.
Yeah.
It's oh my God.
Yeah. And some of it is they can get away with a little bit more kind of things or whatever. Comedy's obviously different for everybody. But it's one of those, I want to seize the moment.
Gotcha.
I want to be like Ari Maddie. Have you heard of him?
Oh, yeah.
Absolute monster of a comedian from Estonia
why
or whatever.
Why does he get to go for 3 minutes every time?
Why does he? Or doesn't he?
No, why does from the beginning?
Because he's a monster.
Gotcha. Okay.
He's an absolute monster.
Yeah.
He does it. They do that to set up the show, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And he's been doing comedy for almost 10 years now. So he was ready for that moment. When he signed up,
yeah,
absolute monster of comedian, great writing.
Yeah.
He comes up and absolutely kills it, obviously.
Yeah.
So then it's one of those things where like, oh, not only is he a Kill Tony regular, but like he was ready for the moment. Some of these other guys are only a few years in.
Yeah.
And then when you bomb, it's atrocious. You're there, that's there forever.
Yeah.
So like, I don't know. I want to be the one that capitalize on that.
Gotcha.
I want to make sure my writing and my
So
set,
do you
I'm
feel
so confident in that.
Yeah.
That I'm ready for that opportunity.
Do you feel like you could pull together a minute that just crushes? Yeah.
I'm sure it's possible. I wouldn't feel comfortable trying to do it now.
Not where you want to be at the moment.
No, I'm not where I want to be. Like I said, I'm not even 2 years into comedy.
Yeah.
I think I'm real enough with myself that I don't think I'm ready for something like that quite yet. Yeah.
I mean, that's whenever I look at it, I'm like, oh, this person was really funny. And they're like, oh, how long you been doing it? I'm like, 15 years. Oh, my God.
But here's the thing.
Like, that's wild.
I mentioned my buddy Heath that, he runs shows down in Peoria as well. He's been doing comedy for 10 years now.
Yeah.
He's a monster. One of the, really talented local comedians in where I work out. And it takes time to get to that point where you hear all the time, you need your 10,000 hours, your 10,000 hours. 1,000 hours a year, hopefully more, if you can maybe live up in Chicago or whatever, and you can get good work in. But like, that's what it takes, man.
Yeah.
That's what it takes. And it is a slow grind. You don't do this if you don't love it.
Yeah.
You don't do this for the money. You don't do this for any sort of clout or whatever, because all of that dies off. You're doing this because you love the game, you love comedy, and you're wanting to get better. That's the only way people actually get good.
Yeah. So other than comedy, what do you do for your mental health?
I need to start getting my ass back in the gym, but I was doing pretty good after a while. Not to be kind of cringe, I did dry January. I'm around a lot of alcohol and stuff like that, obviously, if I'm, doing shows and stuff like that. And I've never thought I really had a problem, but like kind of clearing the mind, a little bit of a reset, I think was good for me. I think just spending time with friends, making like my wife a priority too, because like I think having that good quality time with her is good for our relationship. It's good for my mental health. It's good for her and stuff like that. Yeah. It's one of the, I think I just being more self-aware, being more conscious of, okay, this is the busiest I've ever been in my life. Yeah. I went from, shooting the shit at college to, welding, working at a, collision repair shop, to the now I wrap cars for a living. I'm big into cars.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I wrap cars for a living, and I've been doing that for about 3 years. Nice. Really, really great time. So I shout out to CJ Signs, I guess.
There we go.
Yeah, they're awesome, man. I have a really good.
I just think of the Asian guy on TikTok or Reels right now, the Signs guy.
He is so funny. I'm so glad you brought that up. He's an absolute marketing
He's an animal.
Genius. And then there's another Asian lady out in Galesburg about the pancakes. I don't know if you've seen that. Seen her. It's hilarious.
She'll pop up on my algorithm seconds after you leave.
Probably. But like kind of the similar concept.
Really?
It's so funny.
Yeah.
But no, that guy's hilarious.
Yeah.
He does more lighted signs. We do more like vinyl work and stuff like that. I wrap a lot of commercial vehicles, but no, that guy's absolutely hilarious. Super funny.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Oh yeah.
So for yourself right now, how do you pick what to focus on since you are so busy?
I think I didn't use my calendar on my phone until I started comedy. Like, I'm not a very organized person.
Yeah.
I kind of fly by the seat of my pants kind of thing, if that's still even a phrase. I just kind of do whatever. Yeah. And I kind of go with the flow. So my wife, thank God, is the complete opposite of me in that aspect. Sorry, what?
No, it's just how do you pick what you're going to do? How do you make a priority? How do you make things happen?
So I know I have open mic every Wednesday, Thursday. Okay. I'm trying to get some work in it at least, one of those days. Yeah. If not more, get ready for my possible show on the weekends, where, if things line up, I might get an opening spot on a weekend show and get some more work in. If I'm not working out up in Chicago, stuff like that. Yeah. my wife is also a travel nurse, so that kind of makes things a little difficult as well. Very, very fortunate for the position that we're in right now. Yes, it's awesome. I'm very, very blessed. I cannot discredit that. But no, just trying to like, okay, we're coinciding with schedules, stuff like that. I don't have a show this weekend. I don't have anything really lined up. Maybe try to get a spot, but during the day, let's go on a date with the wife.
Yeah.
Let's spend time with her, go to church on Sunday, whatever. Kind of get the mind right, get things ready to go. There'll be times where like I'll host a Monday mic, which I think we're monthly now. So we'll do like a Monday mic. I'll go, Wednesday, Thursday to open mic. And then, possibly, weekend show Friday, Saturday. Yeah. So then so I have Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then one show opportunity on Friday, possibly 2 more opportunities for 2 shows on Saturday night at my local club. I could get, 5 spots in 1 week if, I'm really, really trying to schedule things right. But it's like you said, it's tough, man. Making time for yourself is also very, very important. I played basketball for the first time in like almost a year the other day. Just because I'm like,
sore were you afterwards?
Dude, my knees, my legs, I'm almost 30, dude. And it's so sad because that's why I need to get back in the gym. Like, I can't feel like this again because like my ankle was kind of sore. I'm like, and I've always had kind of problems. Emo kid, always wearing Vans and, flat-footed shoes, not very good for your feet, right? As I'm wearing Janoskis right now.
Hey, I got barefoot shoes on. We'll rock them.
Heck yeah. But no, just trying to prioritize, time for my family, time for the wife, time for, myself, getting a little workout in, getting a little sweat going, hanging out, hooping with the homies. Yeah. It has been busy, but like as someone who has dealt with depression and stuff like that, the best thing you can do is stay busy.
Love it. Yeah.
Because then you're not constantly consumed by your own thoughts, negative emotions, stuff like that. So then I think in that aspect, staying busy has saved my life.
Okay. So before we wrap up the last 2 questions, where would people follow you as you continue your journey?
You can follow me on Instagram at Manny Does Comedy, or if you still use Facebook, a lot of Midwesterners still do. Manuel Garza, Manuelgarza. Shoot me a follow. I might not add you, but follow me. We'll figure something out. But yeah, Manny Does Comedy on Instagram is mainly where I post upcoming shows and stuff like that.
Perfect. Last 2 questions. What's your definition of health? Not necessarily the dictionary definition, but what is health to you?
I think, I don't know. Health can be, I guess it can be a multitude of different things. Just obviously working on yourself, prioritizing, maybe your physical health and mental health, but also like, I think just like, spreading love to others, I think, is very important. Having, like I said, that gratitude like changed my life. So like, if you spread that love and stuff towards other people, a lot of that same energy is going to get reciprocated, right? Where I think a healthy lifestyle, healthy relationships, health in general start with like intention. Okay. I think intention.
Ooh, I like that. And then what's something from your life that you think people listening to the podcast would be able to take away as a positive?
I think just, I don't know, man. I've been through a lot. Finding things bigger than yourself. Finding things bigger than yourself. Humble yourself a little bit. Yeah. You're not that special.
You're not that guy.
You're not that special. I try not to claim to, be anything crazy. Yeah. Like I said, I'm fresh in this game, but it's one of those things where we can kind of spread that humility a little bit, I think. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me on, man. I appreciate it.
This episode is brought to you by Vital Athlete. And listen up, this could make a real difference. I've been using Vital Athlete Freeze Roll-On for the last 6 months. I stopped using regular painkillers about 10 years ago because of the negative side effects on your liver and kidneys. Vital Athletes understands this. They've created a CBD roll-on specifically for pain and injury relief. Their Freeze Roll-On gives you fast-acting relief right where you need it, so you can keep going. If you care about getting the most out of every workout, then Vital Athlete is for you.